Welcome to Real Demers, where we champion the B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked. We've worked in and around Hollywood, so we know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate cinematic misfits that we hope you'll enjoy as much as we do. All right, today's episode has a surprising genesis. It's thanks to a special someone by the name of Bond, James Bond. Okay, both Andreas and I are major Bond heads. And there was a film in 2025 that I really enjoyed named Reflection in a Dead Diamond, which is a riff on Bond movies, spy movies, pulp stories, etc., all that. And I think, and that's the important word here, giant asterisk next to it, think Andreas would enjoy it as well. But to enjoy the film is to immerse yourself in the strange world of directors Helene Catay and Bruno Ferzani. And I don't just want to drop them into something like that without warming up. And that brings us to their previous movie. Pack up your paintbrushes and plenty of ammo because we're diving into 2017's Let the Corpses Tan. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Bellavia, and I'm here with
Andres Anglade.
Andreas, thank you for taking this journey with me today. I know sometimes we like to introduce the other host to something, and this is a world that I've been immersed in. Had you heard of Helene Catay or Bruno Ferzani before we began talking about Reflection in a Dead Diamond?
No. I think you mentioned Let the Corpses Tan before talking about Reflections in a Dead Diamond. Either way, I hadn't heard of them until you talked to me about them.
Okay. Now, they are a French husband and wife directing duo that currently lives in Brussels, Belgium. And I think to put it simply, they make heavily stylized genre films. You can unpack that into a variety of different directions, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what they're about. They had made short films together for years, but really popped onto the horror scene in 2009 with their feature debut, Amir. I saw that trailer. I was totally hooked. They seemed like they were into Giallo, like all into like huge influences that I enjoyed as well. Ended up watching that movie with a group of friends, but it was kind of like one of those beer and movie nights, and that's something that'd be more like appropriate to be watching Cannibal Holocaust or like Death Wish 3. So for something it's a little bit more like styled and textured and you have to pay attention to the sound design, I liked it, but I really need to watch that one again because it's been years. But I was impressed enough that several years later, their second film, The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears, another horror film, heavily influenced by Dario Argento, played at the Arrow, and that was part of a Belgian movie night where they had pretzels and beer, and it was like a lot of fun. And I completely fell in love with that one. And after that, I was like, I'm in on these guys wherever they're at. We could do a deep dive into their horror work. I don't want to kind of like dovetail too much, but I was happy to see that they were branching out with this entry, 2017's Let the Corpses Tan. This is not a horror film. There's I guess horror elements in it, but it's a love letter to kind of Euro crime. What is this that we're talking about today? What is this film about?
First off, I have to say, I love their titles. Such great creative titles. I mean, they really grab your attention. Let the Corpses Tan takes place on a remote section of the Mediterranean where a group of thieves, led by a man named Rhino, pull off a heist stealing gold and then decide to lay low at what seems like an artist commune compound. A runaway family that's connected to an author who's staying at the hideout shows up. Then some cops arrive to investigate. Chaos ensues as bullets and blood fly. Every character hides, betrayals are suspected, alliances form, and all of this plays out over the course of one super chaotic night. Now, there's a lot more going on than just that, but that's the basic plot.
Yep. So it's based on a book by a French crime novelist, Jean-Patrick Manchette. Hopefully I'm not massacring that name. They're described as being a left-wing author. And that checks out with the movie. We'll get into more of that in a second. I've been dying to read this. There is currently no English translation.
Oh, that's too bad.
I guess just before we really get our hands dirty, I'll say that, as Andreas described, it's basically one long shootout over the course of a night, but where a lot of critics have described this as confusing. Now, whether or not it's confusing, I guess we'll get into as we go. It does jump around a little bit in time, and that takes two forms. One, throughout the film, there's actions, and it might jump back a minute to show what just happened from a different character's perspective. So you'll get somebody being shot, and then it's the person being shot, and then it's the shooter, then it's somebody hearing the shot from somewhere else in the compound. There's several times during the film where the compound is owned by a writer and his muse, and it will be their memories of their like artistic like installations from like years past. So it's not 100% straightforward, but I don't think it's as confusing as some people made it out to be. But we'll talk more about that.
And I would also want to say that in the moments where they are jumping maybe a minute before, 20 minutes ahead, they do use a device of showing you what time it is. So there's text on screen, and they'll play with that a lot, which I thought was really, really cool and inventive.
Okay, so we have not talked about this beforehand. I looked forward to this at the time, loved it. In the early inception of kind of the Real Demers podcast, even throwing ideas against the wall, this was one of my ideas on the list.
You would not shut up about it.
No, I calling them up at 2 a.m, guys. You know, like
my wife's like, "Is that Greg again? Is he still talking about? Let's just watch the damn movie already."
Say Anything style, blasting Euro tunes on a giant boombox on his lawn. And then last year, I was really looking forward to Reflection in a Dead Diamond, which brought this right back up into the conversation again. We have not discussed this. What did you think?
Damn, Greg, talk about style. This film, look, the first 6 minutes, I was worried it was going to be a bit too pretentious and artsy-fartsy for me. Mm-hmm. But that went away very quickly. You know, in other episodes, we've given plot descriptions and followed it up with, there's a lot going on. And with this film, if you really break it down and listening to the basic plot description I gave, not a lot really happens. There's a heist, a runaway family shows up, cops show up, chaos ensues, and there's a big shootout. But the way in which it's told, there's so much in the visual style of this film. It's so unique and refreshing in the sense of seeing artists flex their own muscles. And let me clarify, I'm not saying things don't happen, because a lot definitely does, but there's heaviness and symbolism and motifs that are spread throughout this that add a layer to the simple story of a heist gone wrong. It could be easy to describe this as if Tarantino and Wes Anderson had a baby, but it's so much more than that. It's truly one of a kind, and I loved it.
I think the closest comparison is Tarantino, but that's dangerous, because I think if you send people in saying, oh, it's like Tarantino, you're not going to feel the same way. And exactly. I think you're going to turn people off with that. Here are two filmmakers that clearly love genre movies. And then like they're basically just like Tarantino, putting them into a blender, putting their own spin on it and serving them back. I would say where Tarantino kind of introduces maybe some more lived in real world stuff, and like his characters like dialogue. They're going to have a long conversation. And I think it's just Glenn Ebert compared it to like something you'd hear in a diner next to you. And like that was refreshing. That's not the direction they go. Here, everything's stylized to the point where this is the type of thing that you could even have playing in a museum. So it's draped in sex. It's draped in violence. There's nudity. People are getting shot. There's blood spray. But it's also so artistically presented. There's something classy about it as well.
There's no other film out there like this. It's so unique in their style. And I'm going to be using that word a lot in our discussion. It's just, I loved it, but I could see it not landing with a lot of people. It might be exhausting, too erratic, but to me, it's so cool. Like the way, we had already talked about the way they keep track of everything, using that device of a timestamp, framing it to let you know when things happen, sometimes quick cutting to a minute before, 20 minutes later. It happens so fast. And even as I describe it, I can imagine it sounds confusing, but to your point, like it works.
Some critics were like incomprehensible or all this stuff. And it's like, look, I get it's not the most front to back thing in the world, but also, like you said, the plot's so straightforward. It's an over the night shootout. I don't feel like the little jumps in time are that confusing to follow. And when they jump back in time, they have this amazing device where it's everybody in the past is seen in like silhouette. They're backlit to hell. So you clearly know you're in the past during that. Like they're so I get it, but I feel like if you're willing to engage it halfway, that's rewarding. And also, if this was told straightforward, it would be simple to the point of not that engaging. Like it's all the stylistic flourishes that give it strength.
Exactly. That is so well put. There are plenty of films that have a simple premise, but it's all about how you're telling that story. Speaking of those moments where they cut back to the muse and the artists, I think the only other thing that might throw people off are those moments. I love the way they're used because there's certain things that happen in the present that triggers memories with the muse and sometimes the author or artist. Is he an artist or is he an author?
I think he's both. I've not read the novel. Maybe this is all fleshed out in the novel. It's he has a very distinctive green ring. And in the present and in the flashbacks, you see that green ring
Yeah.
and you see the muse. To me, they seem like they're doing like performance art at this compound. And I think he was a jack of all trades, and probably he just did a whole bunch of different stuff. And at one point, you see him with a book, so he's clearly an author. So they signify him part of this artistic stuff. She has paints and everything out there, and I think it's just an art commune where he kind of did whatever he wanted. But back in the day, he was in high demand, and now he's this washed out alcoholic.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I took her to be the artist and him an author that just is with her.
I think she's an artist as well.
Okay.
I don't mean to undermine that character. It just seems like in the flashbacks, there's almost a power position.
Right.
And we'll get more into that with kind of, so I wasn't sure, but like, no, I don't want to undercut her at all.
No, but yeah, not to trip you up, but I was just because after watching the film and then seeing any plot descriptions online, they do say she's a muse, and I'm like, interesting. I always took it as she herself was more than a muse, an artist.
I was pulling, you know what? I was pulling that from the plot descriptions as well. So it's like, but I absolutely think she is his creative partner in this, especially with where the film kind of ends up.
Yeah, it's never in the film. It's never shown that she's sort of, well, I mean, there are moments, like you said, the power dynamics are there, but she always seems to be on equal footing with everyone else. But that's not even the point of the film. Well, I guess it could be.
Well,
yeah. Sorry. I know. I'm getting ahead of myself. But I did want to say that I do think, back to my original point of those moments where we go back to those flashbacks, they are a bit jarring. I could see people not reacting well to that. But there is a point to them, especially with the female artist or the muse, like thinking of the long lost days of freedom and chaotic art, like this moment, what's happening now with the shooting, explosions, fire, death, it's all bringing that back for her. And she loves it. She even says something like, I don't want this night to end because of how much it makes her feel alive.
Yeah. So I think Andres, so for our purposes, why don't we go with she's the artist and we'll call the guy the writer.
Great. Perfect.
For the rest of this. Okay. Because I think you're right. They are artistic partners.
Yeah. I'm really, really impressed that someone can conceive of something like this just in its execution and shot selection with editing, keeping it all together has to be a bit exhausting. I mean, it's a massive undertaking to shoot this. And I was blown away by it. I loved it. I'm so glad you made me watch it.
I'm thrilled to hear that. But you're right. I don't think this is for everybody. Yeah. I said to my wife, I think she would dig Reflection in a Dead Diamond. I don't think she'd like any of their other movies, including this one. My only thing is, I do wish they had a little bit more of a cult following. I'm surprised there isn't a little bit more of a groundswell, considering how much cool stuff's in here. So yeah, they're not Pulp Fiction. Yeah, they're not Reservoir Dogs. I get that. They're not Kill Bill. But there's so much craft and fun. You had said earlier pretentious. I do think they flirt with that, but I don't think pretentious is a bad thing. I think that just means sometimes it's another word for ambitious. I think they have control of what's happening here. And what we've been touching on, it's not about the shootout. The shootout is engaging and the shootout is suspenseful and creative and all that jazz. But what that is, it's fuel to this artist's fire. They've been bored in this commune. Their lover is totally disengaged from this life they used to have. And now all this blood and death, that's what's going to get their juices going. Yeah. And that's such a cool idea for a story.
It's so great. I love everything explored. And I am so excited to watch Reflections in a Dead Diamond now.
Because that's Bond movie wearing this filter.
It's so cool.
We're here to talk about Let the Corpses Tan. But I just have to say, the strange color of your body's tears is really the apex of their horror work. If you looked at their shorts and you look at a mirror and then you go to there, they kind of stretch that Argento influence as far as it could go. And I love it. I'm a big fan. I'm so happy they tried something different. And then again with Reflection in a Dead Diamond. And then I was just reading an interview in Synapse with them where they say their next film is an animated movie. This is their description. It's a revenge movie set in 1960s New York, visually influenced by Japanese anime. Because it's in the early 60s, we bring back Hitchcock-type characters and that era's atmosphere. We started in 2015, and animation is a much longer process than live action. Like, I like these guys don't just rest. Like, they could have just made horror films the rest of their career, but I just love them going in all these different directions.
I want to watch all the films they've made now.
Oh, okay. I will say, though, and I think you'd be open to it, but I went to this with a buddy. This was playing at the New Art, and we both walked out like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. And then I loaned him my copy of Strange Color Your Body's Tears. And he was like, wow, I hated that.
Oh no.
And I think, and we could talk about that, but I'm a big fan. But I can, just like you're like, I can see why somebody wouldn't like this. I could also be, for each one of their films, I could be like, yeah, I could see why somebody might not
Well,
get into that one.
it's funny. I was bracing myself. I don't know why. I had thought that this one was a horror film, so I was bracing myself for horror. It's not. It's more of a shootout, and there's some bloody moments, but I would never describe this as a horror movie. And then realizing, I didn't watch any trailers. I didn't look anything up. I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go in super cold, check it out. Bracing for a horror film, and then getting this, I was like, this is amazing. So I want to watch. I do like to temper my expectations when it comes to movies, so I will do that when I check out their other stuff.
And also, just to fill in some texture here, it's just to kind of dive into a little bit more what the movie is like about. So two cops show up at this artist commune, and one of them's instantly shot in the face. One of my favorite sequences of the movie because it's so abrupt, and that kicks off like all the chaos you're about to follow. And then it's basically one lone motorcycle cop with very limited ammo and resources up against these criminals in a location he doesn't quite understand. But, and this goes back to the author's like left-leaning like politics, the movie's kind of on his side, kind of not on his side. And I think that's some of the beauty of it. Like, I think he's sympathetic because he's like the lone man, but the artist and even the people who have kind of like, it's the artist, the writer's new wife, who seems like she's kind of going through something, her young son, and then her maid. And those side characters, nobody's really helping the cop.
Oh, well, don't forget the lawyer.
Oh, yes. And there's a lawyer who works with the artist and the writer, who's the one that's invited these criminals in to begin with. So he's part of the gang.
And kind of set up the whole heist.
Yep.
Which, again, sounds confusing, but that's not actually confusing when you watch it.
And then once all those pieces are in play, that's the rest of the movie. So once you get all the introductions to everybody, then you're kind of good to go. But in a American film, I feel like that cop character would have been treated differently.
That's a really good point. But they have a we'll get to it in our t-shirt quotes, but they have a couple of good lines where you understand where the artist and writer are coming from.
And in one of the flashbacks, they're under arrest because a lot of their public art is dealing with nudity and dealing with sex. And like what these directors are great at getting at is like texture. I feel what's happening on the screen. Like the sound design of it, it's like off the charts. Like the visuals are great. The human body to them is just interesting in all of its different forms, including nudity. So here's these artists being arrested for just doing art displays. Yeah, no wonder the writer and artist are like, yeah, fuck these cops.
Yeah.
Like, you understand where they're coming. Now, for good or for ill, you at least understand where they're coming from.
Right.
Just to toss it out there, this brought to mind to me some Italian films, Rabid Dogs and Deadlock. And there's a lot of really good Eurocrime stuff. So if anything we're saying here is like interesting, by all means, check out their other films, but like dive into some of their influences. And the soundtrack here, a lot of it's based on like older films, like pulling like tracks. Even Rabid Dogs, which I just mentioned a moment ago, one of the songs from that film pops up in Reflection in a Dead Diamond. So just like Tarantino, I love that they watch this stuff, they listen to this old stuff, and they're able to kind of like chop it up and serve it back to you in a different format here.
Like you said, they don't really have a cult following, but they should. It's so surprising, especially nowadays. Like I had never heard of this until you brought it up.
With one perfect shot out there, not taking shots on purpose, but like this whole movie is one perfect shot. There's so many good shot composites. So just, again, I know it flirts with pretentious. Everything is stylized. Like nothing about this feels like quote unquote natural, but it's all by design. And I think if it turns off 9 people, that 10th person is going to fall in love with it. I'm just surprised we're not finding more of those 10th people.
Yeah. And I also want to say, me using the word pretentious, it was not about the shots setup or cinematography. It's just a quirky start to a film that I just wasn't sure if I could get on its wavelength. But
I don't think that's an insult at all. And also I get, there is a level of pretension here, but I think that's a good thing. I think it's stylized within an inch of its life, but they never lose control of it. And I think that would be easy. If you didn't have such a firm hand, that could make this obnoxious. And I don't find that at all. I'm totally engaged with it. And also being an hour and a half, I think that's important versus being 2 hours. I think they get in, they tell it, it didn't have to be a frame longer than what we're presented with here.
That's beautifully put. They have such control over this story and how they're telling it. That in itself, after you watch the film, if you really think about what went into making this film and the choices they had to make sure every single cut flowed as beautifully as it does, that's so fucking impressive.
And the heist is like economic precision. They kind of set themselves up in the hills. They sniper a couple cops. They sniper the vehicle, walk up close, blam, blam, like point blank, grab the loot, and they're gone. It's done just like a quick series of shots, and it's so like, just efficient. So
Yeah.
it feels like a buffet. There's so much like, because there's glitter flying, there's smoke in the air. At one point, there's fireworks and there's ash drifting down. There's texture on top of each other, but also it's not overindulgent. I feel like it's a balancing act. And again, for an overnight shootout film, that's why it's interesting. We're not talking about some like pretentious, like drama or something like that. It's about cops versus robbers to the death.
Yeah. It's awesome.
You got to just have to experience it. It's like trying to explain to somebody that's never seen like the color blue what blue is. I think you just kind of have to dive in, and maybe this isn't your thing. And I get that. But if you're at all adventurous, I think there's something you could get out of this. And especially if you're into genre stuff, exploitation, just kind of offbeat cinema, big thumbs up.
I agree. I'm so glad I went into this cold. I have already told a few friends they need to check it out, but I didn't mention that they shouldn't watch the trailer.
Also, same thing with Reflection and Dead Diamond. I think the less you know, all their films, really, the less you know, the better, but I won't get into why that is. But I think we'll be able to maneuver around a little bit more as we enter our category. All right, Andreas, what is the heart of the film?
I piss on your greed getting in the way of my art.
I dig it.
Which doesn't make much sense unless you've seen the film.
Yeah. Sometimes making great art means a lot of people need to die.
That's good too.
All right, favorite scene.
I'm going to go with the heist scene. I mean, talk about editing brilliance. You had described it, the efficiency of the shots, the efficiency of the acts of the heist within the film. It's so quick, but it's so inventive in its execution. And I just thought it was so great.
This is tough. Because the whole film is a shootout, a lot of it is just like, what's your favorite part of the shootout? So something I want to call attention to is the cop who's undergunned and trying to find whatever resources he can, at one point hooks up, he steals the battery and the lights off of a car, and he devises a trap where it's dark at night, but he can turn on these like huge bright lights and use them. And there's a shootout around that. And that's my runner up. But I'm going to be honest. You have a background up right now. One of the art installation things requires ropes, and it goes from being like realistic to being completely over the top surrealistic. And I just think to pull that off in this film in the middle of a cops versus robber shootout, it is so eye-catching, and well, never seen that before. I have to give it to that scene. The shootout, there's so like at one point it's raining. At one point it's dark and there's no moon cover. Then you can see the moon, it's lit a different way. At one point somebody's setting off fireworks, and then when the fireworks are done, the ashes are coming down. So just there's so many different textures. It's hard for me to like even pick it apart because there's so many cool parts to that.
It was tough to find a favorite scene because, like you said, it being one big sort of shootout and everyone hiding, it would be sections of that. But another, I guess, scene did want to call out is where one of the young women, the maid, her name is Pia, she's with the youngest of the thieves, Alex. And he lifts his machine gun and aims it at her as she just screams. But we don't see Pia's body get shot. Instead, the bullets are actually ripping up her dress to make her completely naked. And after she stops screaming, we cut back to reality and we see her eyes looking at Alex. And then she grabs the machine gun as if she were grabbing his junk. And then she kisses him. And he pulls away for a beat, but then they both do kiss. And it's such a powerful way of showing a young woman realizing how she needs to use her body as a weapon because she's essentially a hostage under them. And we see it again later in a brief cutaway where Pia is naked and wielding the machine gun, firing away right before she attacks Alex.
Andreas, I'm so glad you brought that up. And I hope you caught that. First time, she's the one getting shot. Second time, now nude, she's the one doing the shooting when she flips the tables on things.
Exactly. It's such powerful imagery, and I loved it.
I'm glad you brought that up for a different category, but I'm very glad you... Also, I have to call it sex. Let's talk about it real fast. Going back to Tarantino, and no judgment. Make whatever you're going to make. That's fine. But Kill Bill, wonderful movie. We've covered that in another podcast. Check that one out. Huge fans. Sex is not a driving force. It's there, but it's not like people aren't obsessed with it. I feel like in these films, desire is so important. And the other thing is being based out of old exploitation films. Look, a lot of those didn't age the best in that regard, you know, and like they're very male gaze heavy. Of course, here, because it's a husband and wife duo, I never feel this is exploitative, despite being like very, you know, open and like naked bodies at times.
Agreed. Again, it's her realizing her body is a weapon.
Yep, it's there, and I love that it's there, and especially since the sex discourse in American films is so all over the place these days, I like that. Just here's something that doesn't care about that. And Reflection in a Dead Diamond, similar thing. It's taken in a different form, but again, it's a movie that has to deal with desire. All right, favorite shot.
I mean, Greg, where do you even start?
I wrote impossible. I picked something, but
yeah, impossible. But I did. Yeah, it's every single shot is just so creative. You could take each frame and put it up in a museum instead of playing the film in a museum. Again, yeah, this might be the most difficult category for this film. Like I said, every shot is just has such careful precision and inventiveness. There's one moment where the lawyer character confronts Rhino, the head of the thieves, while he's hanging out outside by a smaller art installation. And Rhino pulls the lawyer's face up against a skull. And it's a profile shot of the lawyer and the skull face to face, just sort of almost mashed together as he and Rhino talk. And it's as if the lawyer is talking to death itself. Because the lawyer is the one who came up with this plan, he's trying to figure out how they can get out of this with the cops showing up and the family being there. But it's really kind of signifying that death is just right there staring him in the face. Now, look.
That's a great one.
It's a great one. And look, even in me describing it, it could sound pretentious, but it works. It works for everything else that's in this film.
Well, also the visual imagery of it is like, it's not subtle, but it's not here to be subtle. I mean, that's the assignment. And at one point, the cop character, he sees a statue of like the Virgin Mary, and he crosses himself. And later, when he's under threat, you see the Virgin Mary again, but there's the artist's like shadow form, and the shadow form enveloped, like basically covers it, and it's just like, oh, you're in trouble now. And it's steeped in just image. Like every shot is thought out, like we've been saying. But that's a good thing. I like that it's wearing kind of like it's thinking it out the whole time. And again, maybe that's not for everybody, but I think it's cool that they use it here.
Yeah. Was that your favorite shot?
No, good question. So Almost Impossible. On this rewatch, there were two moments that made me like smile. I was like, damn, nice job there. Where the cop gets shot in the eye, so it's edited so well, it takes the movie into another gear at that point. But the one I'd give it to is you see the moon, and then the moon gets shattered because the cop is making a device so he can kind of put it up. He's pinned down, and he's using the mirror to kind of like spy around like the territory. One, it's just a cool shot. Two, it's in motion. You see that he's trying to craft something, and then it sets off. The artist is observing him as he's making this, and as he breaks the mirror, they're like, 7 years bad luck. That's really funny, but I don't think you'll live for that long. The shot is awesome, and I love the punchline immediately. Oh, breaking that mirror. Well, now you're in trouble.
I have that down on my notes as a shot to call out, because you think it's just a normal establishing shot of the moon, and then you have the sound effect with the action of a mirror breaking, and you realize, oh, we were looking at the reflection of the moon through the mirror. Again, there's just so many, but I do want to call out a few more. In the midst of all this chaos, there's a shot of a photograph of the compound, and ants are running all over it. And it's juxtaposed during the shootout, during the heavy part of the shootout, where it basically shows where characters are moving. Just that someone would come up with that in the middle of this it's so cool.
There's one where this could be the next hour of the episode, us just saying cool stuff in the movie.
For sure.
But
yeah.
Where a character finds the gold that everybody's been kind of like fighting about, and they get shot. And as they're getting shot, as opposed to getting shot and it hitting them with like blood red, it's gold squibs all over them. So they're just covered in gold as they go down. That imagery. Again, the fireworks, like the ash raining down, lighting a scene.
But also with the fireworks, yeah. I love that the artist, she's shooting off fireworks and everyone's like, why is she doing that? And someone says it's to deflect anyone else from coming up there, any other cops, to make it seem like they're having a party because there's been so much gunfire going on.
And the giant smile on her face as she's setting off this, she's having the time of life. And I'll say, skip ahead 30 seconds if you want like a mild spoiler. But one thing I love is the writer, he's lost his nerve. He thinks back to a flashback. And at first he's excited by the flashback. But then when he's back in the present, he looks at his hands and his hands start to shake because he doesn't got it anymore. Versus the artist who like this, like she's living for this. This is the best she's felt in years. I love when given the opportunity to leave, the writer's going to leave and be safe. But before he goes, he sees that vision of the artist who can't be there in reality. This is all taking place in some kind of just his head or whatever. And he loses that ring. It's like, you're not the power person anymore. I am. And I love that. It's such an odd little detail, but I love that it's in there.
It's so inventive and smart and just great storytelling. Okay, the last shot I want to call out, and this is maybe a bit of a spoiler, so yeah, fast forward 30 seconds if you don't want to know. But in the end, Rhino crashes the car, and there's an extreme close-up of his eyes. There's blood and glass, gold glitter just flying around, sort of floating around in front of his eyes in slow motion. And it's all of the violence and art and everything in the film coming together at the end right in front of his eyes. On its own, a shot like that could be simple. But after everything we just watched and endured, there's a lot that shot is saying.
Also, his body flying out of the car onto that flaming hood. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, MVP.
It's the editor, Bernard Beats. I mean, to keep this type of footage together and coherent is a huge task. And I just have to give them a shout out.
That's a great one. Also, maybe not the last time we're going to hear their name in this. I was going to go with Alina Lowen's son. Again, I hope I'm saying their name correctly. They're playing the artist. This is not a movie where we know a lot about the characters. It's the cop. It's the main criminal. It's like the muscle criminal. It's the young criminal. It's the shady lawyer. These are archetypes. And I'm just me saying it. You're going to get a picture about like who these people are. She is having such a good time here. I'm going to save more about that for a moment. She's my star. But I have to call attention to, I love Rhino, played by Stefan Ferreira. Kind of looks like Lee Marvin. He'd be like Lee Marvin's cousin. And not just because of that, like the way the character is and how he carries himself. You know, I'm a huge fan of the Parker pulp novel series. He could be Parker. And I like how he carries himself. He's so self-assured. I could have watched a whole movie series with this career criminal just doing about his thing. So again, it's not like he's given a ton of character development, but just a very charismatic performance. And while Alina might get my number one, I will give him the number two spot. And I'll be talking more about her in a moment. But I just wanted to give him his flowers because I really enjoyed his sneering performance. I like the cop too, but like just Rhino commands the screen.
He really does.
Underrated element.
Sound design. Absolutely the sound design. The sound of the leather is so loud and unnerving. Each gunshot punches you and it carries weight. It's not just background noise. As much as we've described that every shot has been composed and thought of so meticulously, so has the sound design. And the fact that characters are introduced by the sound of their leather jackets and the sound of the leather, it's just so prominent and unsettling. And there's also something to be said about the fact that the characters with the leather jackets and the heavy leather sound effects are the cops and the head of the gang of thieves, Rhino. That's
well put. Also, leather gloves is huge in the horror stuff. So it's almost like that's the handoff of like the power positions. That's a good observation.
Yeah, and I do want to just say the sound editor is Daniel Bruylant. So I just wanted to shout him out because it's incredible sound design.
I'm not sure if there's ASMR fans out there, but like this is an ASMR crime film. Like everything is just the sound of metal, the sound of the leather, the meat cooking, the way somebody drinks something, everything's like amplified to 11.
And I also have to wonder, with it being an homage to old school films, those were like the sound design in the old school films. There were sounds that were super prominent, right? Because they would always have to overdub them because they didn't have the best sound production sound to use. So I'm sure they were playing with that a lot as well, but it just works. It works for this style of film.
Yep. You touched on them earlier. I think you did a great job. Pia the maid. I think they'd be easy to get forgotten here, but the writer themselves doesn't have a ton to do. They're there basically to be the foil to the artist. So the artist is energized, whereas the writer is kind of just their best days are behind them. But Pia the maid's interesting because she finds a Luger on the ground during all the chaos, and she goes in guns a-blazing, trying to get the robbers at one point, and she's subdued. She tries to seduce the younger robber. She has that vision. Basically, she takes actions into her own hands, I'll say, without any sort of spoiler. There's almost a desire for her to go further. At one point, she reaches for a machine gun, and it's almost like she wants to go. And I love, you never quite know, out of all the characters, you know what they're thinking. The cop, he just wants to get out of here alive, basically. The criminal, he wants his gold and to get out of there. Even the artist, hey, I just love, this is great. The maid is the one character I never quite know what they're thinking at all times, and I like that.
It's a good observation. I will say, though, that it is strange, and I hadn't thought of it until now, that the mother character really doesn't get any screen time. And she's just sort of the quiet damsel in distress in the corner, and that's about it.
No, you're right. She has the one moment where she tries to get the kid to the car and drive off, and then they're basically like window dressing until the end.
One other scene I wanted to call out in terms of the sound design. We touch on the writer's ring, the very prominent ring that shows his sort of power. At one point, they show him spinning the top of it, twisting the top of it, and you realize, oh, it actually plays a song as if it's a sort of music box. And I love that there's a moment where he's walking through the compound. We just see people reacting to that sound. And the fact that with that small little design element, you know what's happening. You just know that, that he's actually walking by. We don't need to see him walk by.
Yep.
Just having that play outside the door, and the artist, she has a very specific reaction to it because it's beyond just knowing that it's him walking through. It's that piece that has always held power over her.
And there's the part where during the roast where he reaches for her and she's excited, the momentary, and he reaches past her for the bottle she's holding so she can drink it. She's so she wants him to be the man he used to be.
Yeah.
Even though his wife is literally here, she's so bohemian, that doesn't bother her. It bothers her that he's this coward now. He's not willing to do anything. And that's a good intro into who is having the most fun. Lena Lowenson, she's so good. You need that here. That counterbalances literally the rest of the movie. Everybody else is afraid for their lives or trying to get gold or whatever. And the joy she brings to having this, that is the linchpin to making this all work.
That's my answer too. I 100% agree. She's absolutely having the most fun. She loves having the chaos in her life again because of how much it makes her feel alive. And Alina is showing us that on screen.
I love with the cop, she's not even mad at him. It's like she's talking to a dog. It's all very contentious. Other than go ahead, steal. She's happy to hook up with the criminals, but she's not even pro-crime or anti-crime. It's just more of just okay, whatever. And I love just, is a moral the right word or just her own morals? I don't even know how to describe it. Again, if you made the American version of this movie, I don't think she'd be played at this level.
She wouldn't. I feel like they would make her skew a specific side. Now, I'm not saying which side that would be, but here it's more like, even if she were to get shot and killed, I think she'd be okay with it.
Yeah, at least she's dying for art.
Yeah.
Okay. What scene would you show somebody to hook them?
Simple answer, but it's the heist scene. Who doesn't love a good heist scene? I mean, this one definitely gives you an idea of the beautiful, chaotic style of the film. So that's what I think I would show someone.
I think you're right. That's probably that's the cleanest and requires the least amount of exposition to somebody. They'd be able to put together, okay. I'll just to mix it up, I'd say when the cop gets shot, maybe the 2 minutes leading up to it, and then kind of experiencing the time jump, because it goes from them getting shot to the shooter to the reactions, because that would give you kind of a feel for kind of how the movie plays with time. But that also risks being a little too confusing. So I think the heist is probably the right answer. One of our favorite categories, t-shirt quote.
You don't know us. You think we care about law and order? And that line's spoken by the writer. And that's it. There's a moment where, you wonder if he's going to help the thieves or help the cop. And to him, it's just, he doesn't care either way.
That could be our new Real Deemers shirt with the two of us on the front. And on the back of the shirt, it would say, "This should never stop. Tonight should last forever." Because I think that's the official t-shirt quote if we're going to get into Hot Topic. But the front part of that is, I think this is the hardest I've ever orgasmed in my life, is the first part. So just how much fun she's having with this. But that is what the movie is about. Tonight should last forever. I hope this shootout and all this bloodshed just keeps on going, because I'm loving every second of it.
She does have a lot of the best quotes. Don't you appreciate a little gunfire before breakfast? That fits on a t-shirt as well. Even
the movie opens with her and one of the gang members doing a little art where he's shooting paint onto a canvas and blasting holes in it. and she's like, oh, it's too symmetrical. She's still an artist. Even living out here in the middle of nowhere, even performing to no one, that little activity is not up to her standards. And I like that little character beat. And again, like, I know this movie isn't about characters. This movie is about the style, the sell it and over, but they're still there. There's still moments in there that you can pull out that are good. The cop holding the other cop's hand as they die. Like there's things happen. So it's also not like, well, we don't care about character development at all. It takes a back seat to some of the other stuff, but there's still these moments peeking through, and I appreciate that. Okay. Are there any Oscars?
Manuel de Cos for Best Cinematography. What an achievement. It's just a beautiful film. And most recent projects for them are The Stranger, Dollaway, and of course, Reflections in a Dead Diamond.
So I like to hear. Well, I would just say best direction, best cinematography, best editing, best sound design. So best use of glitter.
I mean, yeah, I can't argue against any of those.
All right. Well, we always like to wrap up with a crew shout out. And you actually covered mine earlier, but just to give them their flowers, Bernard Beats, which is a great name for an editor. They edit the absolute hell out of this. And they also worked on Amir, Strange Color, Your Body's Tears, Reflection of Dead Diamond. I like that this team keeps coming back around again. And a Western called Never Grow Old that had nothing to do with this team. But I just like that they have a little bit, just throwing a Western in there as well.
Yeah, they are a great editor. I initially wanted to give a shout out to the assistant editor who most likely had to organize and keep track of all the crazy footage. That had to have been a massive undertaking, but I couldn't find them listed anywhere. So I'm going to go with the post-production coordinator, Anik Pipalart. Other credits include The Lady in the Car with Glasses and a Gun, and also 2016's Raw, which I feel like is a movie you've seen.
It's great. It's great. That's a great flick. Yeah.
Being the horror aficionado, I figured you've seen it. I'm glad I saw this though.
Oh, I'm thrilled you liked it. I wasn't sure because it is like, it's a lot.
I almost texted you a bunch, but I loved it, dude. I was just so blown away by it. I'm just so impressed with what they're able to do. Like every 2 minutes, I'm like, how the fuck did they keep track of this?
They storyboard the absolute fuck out of everything because that's the only way they can pull it off.
You have to. Yeah, you have to with something like this.
It's some of the sequence. Busy week, and I was like, I have to watch it again before just to be totally refreshed. And I was like, I'll split it up over a couple nights, and then and I just watched the whole way through. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
No, I really liked it. I don't want to get too excited for Reflections.
I don't want to talk too much about it. And also, I'll say this: they were short filmmakers. And Amir is following one person at 3 points in their life. So that almost feels like 3 short stories put together. That's fine. When you see their other stuff, there's the killer with the gloves and the razor and all that stuff. That's great. I love that. I love Argento. I love their take on it. That's fine. But how many times are you going to do that? And again, there's a lot of directors that never challenge themselves. And this is a challenge. And I feel like they rise to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. They could have repeated that and just done like different giallos. Here's a murder thing here. Here's a murder thing. And like they could have gotten away with it because I think they're very good at like sex and violence. And again, it's like, all right, we're going to try this. And like those flashbacks, whatever the idea was for that, I've never seen a flashback that looked like that before.
So cool. I feel like I just kept saying, it's so cool. It's so cool. But it really is. Like I always get so excited when it's just something I'd never seen before and it works and it's so impactful. And that's what they were able to do. This is a voice. They're showing us a voice that we've never seen or heard before.
Also, I think in the best possible way, match this freak energy. I love it's a husband and wife team coming up with this. And like, sweetie, do you think that they're tied to this cross correctly? Oh, sweetie, do you think this shotgun fell? And I love that.
That's such a good point. We didn't talk about that at all. I'm still in awe of this film and what they're able to achieve. And I don't understand why more people aren't talking about it.
Well, hopefully we're starting the revolution right here.
It's getting real deemed.
I would not be opposed to covering some of their other stuff. I think they qualify and think we'd have a fun because I'll say I don't think Reflection in a Dead Diamond hits the same way. It hits in a way I enjoy, but not the same way. I do not think Strange Color Your Body's Tears hits. So I do not think they're the same act. over and over again, even though stylistic flourishes might carry over, the sound design carries over, how it impacts you or how it's telling the story varies. I think that's important. And again, like they're working on an animated film next. What's the future for them? Could they do a straight up Western? Could they do a romantic comedy? Because I think with their formal control, I think they'd have a lot of fun if they were trying to apply that towards a comedy.
I agree. I think they would be able to tackle any genre and give it such a unique spin. I'm excited to see what they come up with in the future.
And I never worried about, I wasn't around them enough to really think about it before kind of prepping for this episode. But for so long, horror was their bag. Find their horror shorts online. They're part of the ABCs of Death, the anthology. So you can find some of their work in there. Track Down Amir, track down Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. There was a time where it's like, is that going to be their thing? And like, look, plenty of directors just work in horror and that's fine. I love they've broken out. And not to say that makes them better or worse. If you have a whole bunch of great horror movies, that's fine. But it just seems like they took their style to a certain plateau and they're like, there, we've refined it. And this is where we're going to take it to. I love they're able to experiment and come over here and it works as well as it does. And now let's bring on all the genres. I want to see it.
I can't wait to see what they do next. I really hope people watch it.
Well, thank you for coming on this journey with me today. And listeners, thank you for coming with us on this podcast today. If you've enjoyed what you heard, please support Real Demers by leaving a like, subscribe, or review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. You can find us on YouTube, Bluesky, and Instagram. And if you want to reach out and send a comment, you can email us at reeldeemers@gmail.com. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy, and you can check him out on Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Take care.